We are taking a look at Apocalyptic Shadow for version 4.0. This one is called the Militant Lupine. We're going to take a look at the buffs, the bosses, talk about teams, and do a little demo. So to start, let's look at the main buff here in the corner. This is the buff that you get when the boss gets broken. And so in this one, you're going to get all your skill points back, immediately take action, which is normal, and grants Aha an extra turn, which will count as a 10 fixed punchline points. So this is the Elation shilling Apocalyptic Shadow to kind of match up with all of the other endgame modes right now that are pushing Elation. So Aha will show up regardless of whether you have a Elation character or not. And on top of that, you get an increased Elation damage by 25% and break damage by 15% buff. So obviously, if you got Sparksy, play Sparksy. You want the skill points and the Elation damage. Otherwise, you know, skill points and a little extra damage from Aha is fine. There's not really any other way to interact with this buff with other characters. So let's talk about the bosses, which is the most important part of this particular Apocalyptic Shadow. I'm going to pull up the boss guide, which I always recommend checking out because this is the only mode that actually explains all the boss mechanics. But it is a lot. I'm not obviously going to read all this. I'm just going to summarize. For Nikador, he has the important mechanic here. He has his war armor, which reduces when you attack him, and until it's gone, it greatly reduces how much damage he takes. It's also tied to like actually breaking him in this particular mode. And on top of that, there is a mechanic here for gaining a buff called Glory, which you can see here. So every time you consume a skill point, you gain 1 stack of Glory, which will increase your crit damage. But more importantly, it will allow you to reduce the war armor faster. So you use a skill point, you gain Glory, and however many stacks of Glory you have, that's how much you're going to reduce Nikador's armor. So if you use 3 skill points, you have 3 Glory, you're going to remove 3 armor with 1 attack instead of 1 armor, which is a very important mechanic, because otherwise, without the skill points, this fight can drag on a long time. It's very important that you are using at least some skill points with your characters. So obviously this very highly favors Sparksy, who is going to just knock out a huge amount of skill points in 1 turn and knock out his armor very quickly. But no matter who you're using, it highly favors you using at least some skill points. Strategy-wise, which we'll see in the demo, I very much recommend using at least 1 skill point even with your support characters. So for example, with Don Hung, if you use just 1 skill point at the beginning, every time his dragon comes by, it is going to reduce twice the amount of armor that it would otherwise. And that applies to Nikador and the big spears that he summons. It's kind of important to drop them too. If you can destroy them, that is another way to gain Glory. So that can be very helpful. So just make sure you're using skill points. Very important to this fight. Otherwise, it's going to take forever. Thankfully, the second boss is much more forgiving. We've got the Fei Shao boss, and this is the version of Fei Shao where you get to turn into the tiny little Borison, which will help with your toughness reduction and breaking the boss. So the only kind of mechanic to work with here is the Borison will break faster based on the number of dots on the boss. So that does favor Dot a little bit. It's not so huge of a difference that I would be like saying you must play Dot, but it is the best way to engage with the mechanics. You'll break the fastest with your little Borison buddy when he gets summoned. So other than that, though, this boss is a lot more forgiving. You can pretty much play whoever you want that is capable of breaking these 4 elements. So that helps a little bit in dealing with the more restrictive Nikador boss. Okay, so let's look at the buffs. For Node 1, we have these 3 starting with Oppose with Tenderness. All allies' elation damage ignores 15% of the all-type res. And when the war armor is broken, you gain 3 punchline points. So this is obviously for your elation team. Pick Sparksy, pick this buff, you're good to go. You should crush the boss and be fine. The second one, Montane Gush. After all allied targets use their ultimate, the crit damage dealt by their skill increases by 50% for 2 turns. So this is primarily skill damage. While a lot of characters can use this, keep in mind you want to stay focused on characters that actually use skill points. And you'd be surprised how many characters do skill damage without using skill points. So for this one, I would particularly favor the Herta or Anaxa. Particularly the Herta, who literally does her skill right after her ultimate. It feels like it's almost designed for her. She's also a good matchup against Nikador in general. You do want to be careful about using characters like Mighty or Jingliu, who primarily do skill damage, but they don't use any skill points. So you will probably struggle to get through Nikador's armor with them. Of course, you can also pick this and just try to brute force it with your Casterus or Finon. Finon does okay. Just make sure that you use skill points before you go into his ultimate so that he can reduce the armor a little bit better. Casterus, of course, just can always brute force anything. Her elements match up good with this boss, and she can kill all the spears, which is kind of another way to build the stacks of glory other than using skill points, because of course Casterus does not use skill points, but Casterus is Casterus. She's the strongest character in the game. She does whatever she wants. Okay, so finally, Moment of Opportunity, our third buff here. Increase follow-up attack and ultimate damage by all allies by 50%, and an additional 50% if the enemies are broken. I feel like this is in here because Ashvale is about to come out, and he does a lot of follow-up and ultimate damage. I feel like the current follow-up attack and ultimate damage characters are not going to be good in this fight. So, like, if you tried to use Fei Xiao, it's probably not going to do well. I have cleared with Fei Xiao, but I have a weird E2 team with Jade. I wouldn't recommend trying it. And as far as you could just focus on ultimate damage, but I was struggling to clear this with Acheron, or Saber is the other kind of classic ultimate damage character. Saber, her elements just don't line up, so it's hard to break properly, and Acheron's just not doing enough damage. So that's a long roundabout way of saying just wait for Ashvale to come out, and I think this buff will be good for him. Okay, and then in Node 2, our buffs are Collapse on Sight. This is increase all enemies break damage by 10%. After breaking weakness, you get a 15% speed buff. So it's a little break buff. Obviously, this is going to favor your break teams. Rappa's really good in this fight, since she is full AoE, and you're going to be dealing with 4 targets most of the time, I believe, in this fight. Firefly, of course, is good, as always. Boothill can use this. I have cleared with him, but he's going to struggle a bit more, as he always does with being single target. Also, these particular enemies don't break quickly, so it's going to take you some time to build up his trick shot, and that can be a bit tricky, so to speak. The second buff is Essence of Gold. Increase all allies crit damage by 30%, and an additional 30% for the first character in your lineup, including their Memo Spray. So this is a very generic buff that you can just use on anybody. This is the one if you're going to brute force with Casterus and Finon, as the generic ones usually are. Both of them are good in this fight. I think particularly Finon. Like, if you're going to brute force, I think Casterus is better in the Nikador fight, and Finon is better in this fight, but they can both work in both. So, and obviously, any character that's not Break or Dot is going to want crit, so this is a good generic buff. And speaking of Dot, final one is Devastating Heartbreak. Increases Dot dealt to enemy targets in the weakness broken state by 30%. So obviously that favors Dot, and as we mentioned, Dot also works well with the boss mechanics as far as the Borison breaking the enemy toughness bars faster. So if you're going to go that route, that's the buff to pick. Okay, so finally teams. I've mentioned a few different possibilities when we're talking about the buffs. I am going to be playing the Herta in Node 1. So I have E2 the Herta, E1 Tribbie. I'm going to be using E1 Jade. I think most people will be using an Axa, which is totally fine. They got about the same results with both of them. And we're going to be using Dan Heng, who I have at E0S1. And then in Node 2, I am pushing Rappa while she's still on the banner. Everybody get her because she's super fun, if you can, of course. And I've got pretty classic Rappa team here, so I've got Dahlia, Fugue, and Lingsha as my sustain. So, I think that's enough talking. Let's get into the demo. Okay, so we're doing the Nikador boss first. Let's power everybody up.
Take a look. This is your genius in action.
So right away you can see under his life bar is the 12 out of 12. That is his armor. And you can see the number over everybody's heads. That is the glory stacks. So you will reduce his armor by whatever that number is over your head. And that number will go up every time you use a skill point. So I used one with Dan Heng already. My strategy has been to skill with Dan Heng every turn that I can. And skill points are very generous in this fight. And the reason I do that is because that way every time his dragon comes around, he will do an extra, the increased amount of damage to the armor. Alright, we're going to let the spikes or spears come out before I ult with Tribbie. And you see the spears have their own armor at 8 of 9. And you want to break and take out the spears as well. So, it all kind of works together. Okay. Now the downside of Jade over an Axa is she does not use skill points other than her initial signing the contract. So, but she does attack very frequently, which is nice. And she does attack all the targets. It's full AoE, which an Axa is not, so that's also nice too. I take the same strategy with Tribbie, where I will also try to skill every time I can, just to build that number up. But she takes a lot less turns than Dan Heng, so... Okay, so this is going to break the boss. And we will get all those skill points. One thing I did not mention, because it's not really that important, but there is no limit to how many skill points you can get. Which gets pretty crazy on the Sparksy team. Okay, now that he's broken, I'm going to chill on the skill points, because your glory will reset once the phase changes, or anytime the boss gets his toughness bar back. So it feels real bad when you can't take him out before he recovers, as it always does in Apocalyptic Shadow. Oh, it would have been nice if that timed out to her using the skill point after. Because you're going to see... Oh, that was real close. Alright, there it goes. So our glory counters over our head just reset. We got to start over on that. Alright, let the spears come out. Okay. You see, this time he has 99 armor, which is pretty crazy. This is where taking out the spears really helps, because it'll greatly accelerate your glory gain and also your ability to strip the armor.
Expand your thinking. Watch it grow. Bending the rules.
Yeah, it would have been really nice to get a skill point on Jade before all this, but it is what it is. Oh, I haven't been able to skill with Danny yet either. Okay, there we go.
Open sesame. Glimpse the unknown. Curiosity.
I probably should have waited on that Herta ult, because she was coming up right after the dragon.
It's coming. I feel that flame. I don't have time today. Expand your thinking. Watch it grow. Who's the little backstabber?
Okay, I think Jade picked up some stacks from taking out the spears, which is nice. As did the Herta.
Open sesame. Glimpse the unknown.
So you can just imagine how fast this goes with Sparksy. It's pretty wild. I didn't want to do that because I always try to pick like a slightly off different team. A lot of people skipped Sparksy too, or are skipping Elation, so
Expand your thinking. Curiosity. Endless freedom. Nothing but a boy.
okay, let's... We're getting there. Alright, this Herta shot should
Open sesame.
get the break.
Watch it grow. Time for a lesson. Hopeless as ever. Expand your thinking. Glimpse the unknown.
Alright, we might as well just attack at this point.
I always deliver. I don't have time for games. Open sesame. Curiosity. Endless freedom. Nothing but a boy. Bending the rules.
There's just so many follow-up things happening.
For me or you. Never seen perfect. Expand your thinking. Watch it grow.
Okay, we're almost there.
I don't have time for games. Open sesame. Glimpse the unknown.
Alright, there we go. 35-22, which is pretty good. That is a very solid Apocalyptic Shadow. Okay, so let's do the Rappa
Nothing but time to return.
Face Shao boss. There's not nearly as much thought process going into this one. We're kind of just gonna start blasting. The one decision you have to make is who do you pick to be the Borison, and you're typically going to want that to be whoever's not doing damage. In this case, everybody on this team does a little bit of damage, but Fugue is probably the best option. So, yep, we're going to send her over. And that's gonna hurt a little bit, but it's fine. Okay, thankfully breaking the boss dispels all your status problems. And that'll give us a chance to heal. This fight does a weird thing where you can see there's a little bit of Fugue's toughness bar. And I don't know if that's a bug or if there's some mechanic I'm not aware of. But it's a little weird. Oh, I should have... that was a waste. I should have let Dahlia get that last bit of life. Ah, well. I think we'll be fine.
So beautiful. Allow me to purge the time to cleanse the filth.
Alright. Can I get a... I don't think I actually got a break on that one. The Borison will get a break, though. Alright, I'm going to focus on that one. Just barely missed getting the Rappa continuous ult. But it's fine. Fugue, we've barely seen you this whole time. Okay. Will this be enough to finish? Maybe? Ah, so close. Alright, we got it on the Dahlia follow-up. Alright, 3678. Not bad. I made a couple mistakes in there, so I think I could have easily gotten over 3700. And, you know, the total 7200 is a very, very good Apocalyptic Shadow clear. So, there you have it. That'll do it for Apocalyptic Shadow 4.0. Hopefully that was helpful, or at least a little bit entertaining. If you like this, like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.